Hello again, everyone. I'm here today with an update on my ink swatch, fountain pen ink swatch notebook, where I'm keeping all of those and how I'm organizing it. I will put a link down below to the original video where I went through this notebook, and that talks about the supplies that I use in here and the basic setup. What I'm going to do today is really just talk about the changes, so I will refer you to the other video for the basic supplies, and then this I'm just going to do a flip through and talk about some changes that I've made since that video was posted. So I will mention that this is a Chic Sparrow E-Class A6 in the Evanwood color, and it has aged super well. I'm really loving this. The more I am using this, the more I am sad that they are not going to be carrying both the E-Class in this kind of leather, and this particular first run of this leather is just gorgeous, and I'm so sad that they weren't able to get more of it because it really is lovely. I do have one other notebook that I haven't shown to you all yet in the Eastwood leather, in the same line, in the first run of the leather, and that I'm using currently as a art classes to take, the art classes I've taken, and sort of documenting my progress through those art classes. So I do plan to show that at some point on the channel. I have a super long list of videos so on my list of things I want to do, so that it might be a little while before I get to any particular one that I mentioned doing on my channel. So I apologize about that. It's just that I have so much exciting content that I want to share with you guys that I have a list that's really long, and so it might take a while. So one of the changes I made to this notebook, and let me zoom in just a little bit so you can see it a little closer up, center that a little bit. One of the biggest changes I made is I had a plastic card holder in here where I had my pen glued to that, and I took that out just because it wasn't really serving its purpose other than to hold the pen. So what I ended up doing was taking that out, and then I put a pen loop on the back of this main notebook, because I figured this is going to be in here for quite some time. I am still going to be using this Sharpie pen to delineate lines, to separate out colors and stuff in the notebook. So I still needed the pen, but this worked out a little better than the plastic notebook that I had in here. So I still have this little Magical Ideas notebook in here. I still have this, the main fountain pen swatch notebook, but I've also added a Taroko Shop Tomoe River insert that's a little thinner. And what I'm using this for is what I'll show you in just a minute, because I'm actually going to talk a little bit more about some of the other changes before I get in there. So the other changes are I took the things out of that plastic little card holder and put them in the pockets in here. I figure I have pockets here. Why not just use them here? And then I also put a couple of stickers that I was keeping in those pockets on this thinner notebook. I didn't put anything on the back yet, but I might. And then I also put the rest of the stickers and little like parts of boxes that I'm keeping and instructions back here. I have some extra stuff back in here. There's so much storage in this that it really just seemed unnecessary to have that additional storage option in there. And plus, when I wanted to add this notebook, because I wanted to have this for a specific purpose, it was a little too bulky with that plastic notebook in there. And again, for which plastic notebook I'm talking about, see the video below where I first went through this, and you'll see what that setup is at that point in time. So I'll go through this first. So this extra little notebook that I've added in here, I switched to my currently inked. So I had my currently inked before in a folio, a B6 Slim folio, where I had it sort of in the front, and then I was doing some journaling in the Cafe Notes notebook that I had in the other part of the folio. I will put a link down below to that folio. It's my B6 Slim Americano folio, so I'll put that video down below as well. But it was with onion skin paper, and I just was really not liking the onion skin paper for the currently inked list. it wasn't really showing off the ink as well as it would be as I would be writing it in a notebook. And at some point it just became all smudgy, and maybe I'll find another use for the onion skin notebook, but I think I've kind of decided that for writing with a fountain pen, onion skin is just not my jam. So, and you know, you have to experiment to learn these things for yourself. So that is what I learned. So I took that out of that notebook, and I now have this new A6 Tomoe River notebook in here that is serving that purpose, to list what my currently inked are. And I've tried to organize it a little, although I keep moving my pens around, and I'm trying to consolidate my pen cases. And then I also got a new pen case, which I'll show on the channel at some point. This, what I'm calling my Monteverde case. It's a less expensive fountain pen case that holds 36 pens, I believe. And the price of it is around $30. I mean, it's not super fancy leather, but it's definitely very sturdy, and it holds the pens and it keeps them safe. So that's the important part. And that was actually a case that was recommended by Goulet Pens. So, and they, you know, they have a ton of pens and store a ton of pens. So if they're saying that that's a good fit for pens, then I'm inclined to believe what they're saying. But anyway, so it's gotten a little messy even since I set this up, just because I've changed where certain things live. Because I do try to indicate where they're being kept, or what notebooks they are associated with, just so that I can find the pen fairly easily. So, and as you can see, my list of currently inked is quite large. I really do need to cut down on my currently inked. I think what I'm gonna do is, as pens run out of ink, I might clean them out and then not immediately refill them. A lot of these pens are on their first fill ever of ink, and so I was just, you know, really excited to try them out. And so now that I kind of know what I like writing with more often, I will probably clean them out and then decide more judiciously which ones I want to fill. But for now, I have a lot inked. Most of my pens have not been an issue keeping them inked for a significant length of time. The only one that I inked, let's see if I have it written in here. Let's see. Do I have it written in here? Maybe I don't. Because I have, oh, there it is. So I have a Schaefer Targa, which is it's a vintage pen. That was the one and only vintage pen that came with the art supplies that I got from my sister-in-law's grandmother. She had one fountain pen amongst all the stuff. And so now I'm using that. I replaced some of the parts on it. It's just stuff you can replace really easily. Like I replaced the converter. It had a little squeeze converter, and I replaced it with a new one, with a modern converter, because it does fit in this one. But I filled it with Diamine Registrar's Blue Black, and I have since learned that because it's permanent ink and it probably is Oxgall based, it's probably not a good idea to leave it in that pen for any length of time, especially since it's vintage. So I'm gonna probably go back in and clean that out before I'm done with all the ink. In fact, the last time I opened this pen, the ink had come out on the nib and was just drying out and sitting on the nib, and I was like, okay, I've got to do something about this pen. So basically I cleaned up the outside, but I really do need to get the ink out of there, I think. So that was my one snafu with, you know, letting ink sit. I think pretty much every other ink, even the platinum colors that do have Oxgall in them, I think they're gonna be okay, because that's not really a high percentage of what might be corrosive in the ink. So, and my pens haven't had an issue with it so far, quite frankly. So that's the only one. Okay, so then I'm now to the main event, where I'm gonna do a quick flip through of this, although let me just show you quickly how I've been using this notebook in the back. Oh, and these are my little chromatography strips that I did with my nephew not too long ago. So we just tried out various inks to see what they were made of. And we learned that Robert Oster Hot Pink is made out of hot pink and pretty much nothing else. And then we also learned that things like this Organic Studios Aldous Huxley has quite a bit of green. And we also found out that this Sailor Rikyo Cha, which is a very dark green, is actually mostly blue. So those are all kind of interesting. I do plan to do another video on chromatography at some point in the future, just because it's so interesting and kind of fun, especially if you have kids and want to do that with them. So for the most part, I've just been doing little pen tests and that sort of thing, but also I put lists of what I want to fill with what. So like this was from a recent pen cleaning where I went through and cleaned out all my pens, and then I made a list of which pens I wanted to have which ink in. These are some marker tests, and again, so these pen filling plans. So when these pens are ready to be filled, these are the new inks that I'm going to put in them. So it's basically a general purpose notebook. So then in here, I am just going to do a flip through of what we have in here. And again, I still haven't worked on the index. I'm not sure when I will do that. And since the last time you saw this, I also went in and with a little paintbrush with some water and brushed the corner of each of these samples to see how water soluble the ink is. Like you can certainly see that Noodler's Lexington Gray is not water soluble at all, because when I did that, it didn't move at all. Whereas these are fairly water soluble. And I went through and did that with all of the inks, including the samples, just so that I would have a sense of, you know, how permanent or non-permanent they are. What really kind of surprised me were these Sailor inks. I mean, they're clearly a little bit water soluble, but not as much as most of the other colors. So even though they're not labeled as a permanent ink, they could be almost permanent. And then of course there's some colors that just bleed a ton with water. And this was interesting to me too, because I kind of wanted to know that if I ever wanted to do some sketching, like pen and ink sketching, where I would use a water pen or a water brush to kind of spread out the color, this also shows me which colors will work best with that and what the washed out color will be. So that's why I wanted to do that. And again, these two noodlers, I don't know what to do with them because they're so feathery. My husband just really loves this Rome is Burning ink, and it's a feather monster. Let's just say that. So again, you can see that these are permanent because they did not spread at all. And again, like some of the Robert Oster inks kind of surprised me too, like this Viola didn't really spread very far. These all, of course, are very pigmented, and then, of course, you know, I dripped some ink on the lettering, so it looks a little sloppy, but it serves my purpose as far as knowing what's what. But yeah, see, all of these did not spread very far with the water, and even the Sailor, even though it looks very darkly pigmented, it's not flowing very far. So I probably wouldn't want to use that for pen and ink sketching if I'm going to be using a water brush, just because I'm not going to get much out of it. Okay, so that's that, and then I don't think I really have any new samples. I think it's just kind of, oh, and I didn't do these samples with the water. Oh, well, there you go. I did from here on, but not these newer ones. I'll have to go back and do that. So, yeah, these all you've seen before. These are all the same ones, and whenever I actually do go back and buy an ink, I put a little check mark next to it. And then I did the same water-soluble test for these Christmas colors by Diamine from the Inkvent calendar. So I'll just go through that real quickly so you can see the different ones. Happy Holidays is very pigmented, obviously. Okay, and that's it. So I'm still keeping this pencil board in here. It's been very useful. Sometimes also if I don't want ink to spread between pages, if I think it's a really super pigmented ink, I'll put this behind this. I mean, I've never actually had a problem with things leaking all the way through, especially with the blotter paper, but just in case. And then I also make my little sections that are like these with this. I essentially use this as a ruler too. So it's been working really well. I would say of all the traveler's notebooks I have at this current point in time, I probably refer to this, other than the ones I visit daily, like my everyday carry. I have, you know, a 5-year Leukstrom that I write in, or at least try to write in every day. So other than those that are daily use kind of things, this is definitely the one I reference the most often. So it's been really useful. I'm going to keep it up. At this point, since I've cataloged all the inks I already have, it's going to be easier because it'll just be cataloging things as they come in. And hopefully that's going to slow down a little bit just because I have so much ink that I need to use and there's only so many days in the year. So I am an advocate of not hoarding supplies and using them. The only problem is I clearly have a hoarding gene where I want to hoard things, or at least have a lot of supplies available. But I do want to start using all of the things I have. So I think that's it for today. So that, like I said, it was just an update on how this notebook is doing. And my overall thoughts are it's definitely worth doing, at least certainly for me. And I'm really loving this setup. All right. Well, that's it for today. Feel free to like and or subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks so much. Bye.